The octopus is a living refutation of our usual notions of a brain. It seems to have several, a central one in the head, and 2/3 of the neurons are distributed across its 8 arms, each capable of thinking locally, exploring the world with suckers that not only grip but also taste the surface. It has 3 hearts. 2 pump blood through the gills, 1 through the body. Its blood is blue due to copper in hemocyanin, efficient in cold, oxygen-poor water. The octopus changes skin color and texture almost instantly thanks to chromatophores, iridophores, and muscle papillae. A spotted stone, a swaying seaweed, a coral shadow. It activates all of these like light scenes. Its body is soft, boneless, allowing it to squeeze through gaps as narrow as its beak. Hence its documented escapes from aquariums, including the story of Inky the octopus, who, according to keepers, once found a gap in its enclosure and crawled into a drain towards the ocean. In labs, they unscrew jar lids, solve simple puzzles, distinguish people. Some species carry coconut halves, stacking them like portable armor, a rare example in the ocean of intentional tool use. Yet their lives are short. After reproduction, adults rapidly decline, and the female may spend months guarding her brood without hunting. There's also a dangerous side. The saliva of several species has a mild toxic effect on prey, and that of the blue-ringed octopus contains a particularly potent neurotoxin, which is why it's carefully studied by biologists and medics. But the main point isn't its monstrosity, but the alien structure of its mind, a brain distributed across the skin and arms, which doesn't so much see the world as it palpates, recognizes, and immediately reinterprets it, like a stage designer.
Fact 2. The bombardier beetle is an insect with its own chemical artillery, a mini reactive engine in its abdomen. In its rear part, there are 2 chambers. One stores a mixture of hydroquinones and peroxide precursors. The other contains enzymes, catalase and peroxidase. When the beetle opens its chitinous valves, the components meet in a reactor, initiating a violent oxidative reaction in a fraction of a second. The temperature jumps almost to boiling point. A caustic stream of ketones forms, and with its abdominal turret, it fires it in short pulses, rotating it almost like a fire hose. High frame rate video footage shows that it's not a single shot, but a series of dosed flashes. This is how the beetle regulates pressure without destroying its own reactor. The stream is accompanied by a click and a cloud of vapor. For a frog or spider, it's like a sudden pepper spray with a burning effect. The range is a few tens of centimeters, but on the scale of the forest floor, it's long-range defense. The myth of self-combustion is inaccurate. There is no fire, only controlled chemical detonation in an aqueous medium. Microfluidics engineers are studying the reactor's design. The chitinous lining withstands thermal shock cycles, and the valve mechanism resembles a pulsed jet engine, where pulsating fuel supply provides stable thrust. Related species vary the mixture formula and chamber geometry, tuning the ammunition for their predators. And that's not all. Larvae of some bombardier beetles find their way into ant nests, where they chemically camouflage themselves, another silent side of their chemistry, showing how finely evolution balances between a deafening burst and invisible scent mimicry.
Third fact. The mantis shrimp is a combination of supervision and impact physics in a palm-sized body. Its eyes sit on movable stalks, and each sees like 3 cameras at once. One eye has 3 zones that provide triangulation and depth perception without the help of the second. There are not 3 receptors like in us, but a dozen or more, including ultraviolet, plus sensitivity to linear and circular polarization of light. At such a frequency, many creatures are literally transparent, and the mantis shrimp reads the patterns invisible to us on the shells of its neighbors. But it is not famous for that. In smasher species, the front limbs fold like a spring in a crossbow, and at the moment of attack unload at speeds of tens of meters per second, giving an overload of thousands of G. The impact is accompanied by cavitation, A bubble arises in the water which instantly collapses with a shock wave and a brief flash of light, the effect of sonoluminescence. The bubble hits the prey almost like a second fist, which is why the snail shell cracks even if it does not give up easily. In aquaristics, these peacock predators are housed in thick acrylic. Thin glass they can damage, and stones they can move, building fortified burrows. There are also spearers. Their spiky legs, lightning fast, pierce a shrimp or fish. The behavior is almost engineering. They mark doors with polarized patterns, recognize neighbors. In some species, pairs share a common passage for years, like a family fortress. The myth of color super-precision is debatable. Research shows that a large spectrum is not necessarily a fine palette of shades, but rather a fast traffic light, instantly distinguishing self-other and targets against the background of glare. Nature here seems to have invented the weapon twice, first in muscles and levers, then in the water itself, turning it for a moment into explosives. Fourth fact: the naked mole rat is a mammal that breaks almost all our mammalian rules. It lives underground in East Africa, building multi-level tunnels hundreds of meters long, and is organized like an anthill. There is a queen, there are workers and soldiers, reproduction is suppressed in all except the chosen ones. It poorly maintains body temperature, an almost poikilothermic animal, but perfectly tolerates confinement, carbon dioxide, and low oxygen. During hypoxia, its cells switch to an alternative pathway, efficiently burning fructose and continuing to work where other mammals are already suffocating. In experiments, colonies survived oxygen drops, and individual specimens withstood complete anoxia for minutes, a phenomenon for warm-blooded creatures. Their skin barely reacts to acid and capsaicin. Evolution turned off chemical pain in the conditions of stuffy burrows where caustic gases would be a constant torture. They live many times longer than similarly sized rodents, decades, and maintain physical fitness for a long time, showing slowed aging. Cancer cases are rare in them, which is attributed, among other things, to unusually long hyaluronan molecules in tissues and peculiarities of cellular surveillance. The anatomy is pure utility. Huge external incisors dig, and lips close behind the teeth to prevent dirt from entering the mouth. Whiskers and vibrissa on the body serve as radar in absolute darkness. Within the colony, there are clear roles. Soldiers rush at snakes, workers carry tubers and fecal bricks to reinforce walls. This animal is not cute, but extremely functional. Its physiology is a survival textbook in a world where air is expensive, light is scarce, and colony order is more valuable than individual habits. Fifth fact: the humpback whale is a sound and bubble engineer, turning the open ocean into an acoustic stage and a dining hall simultaneously. Males sing long, repeatedly structured compositions, each like a pop song, motifs, choruses, variations. They last 10–20 minutes and cycle for hours, and crucially, they change from season to season according to the laws of cultural fashion. In the South Pacific, scientists have recorded how a regional hit could travel thousands of kilometers from Australia to Polynesia and beyond within a couple of years, displacing older versions. But this singer also has the craft of a hunter. In some populations, whales hunt with bubble nets. One animal breathes in a spiral, creating a hissing wall in the water column. Another emits a call that gathers the prey, and several others rise from below, allowing the group to surge upwards with open mouths into the white foam. At this moment, anatomy comes into play. The throat grooves expand like bellows, the throat widens, and tens of liters of water along with herring are drawn under the baleen. A second later, the water filters out and the silver bodies remain on a shelf of keratin plates. Their long gray-white wings, the pectoral fins, up to a third of their body length, act as rudders and brakes, and their bumpy skin hosts single vibrissae, sensors that help them feel currents. Migrations lead humpbacks from cold, food-rich latitudes to warm, nearly empty breeding waters, thousands of kilometers guided by memory and sound.
During dives, the classic marine mammal oxygen conservation kicks in. Heart rate slows, and blood is redistributed to vital organs. And another trait that defies textbook descriptions, field observations show humpbacks often interfere with orca hunts, scattering the attacking group or shielding another individual's calf, sometimes even from another species. The motives behind this behavior are debated, but the fact itself shows how, within this body, the voice of culture, the physics of bubbles, and social improvisations coexist. Fact 6. The tardigrade is a creature the size of a moss speck, but with a survival mode that makes it a symbol of extreme resilience. It has 8 legs with tiny claws, a rounded body, and a stiletto-like mouth. Under the cover of a leaf, it moves slowly like a plush tank as long as the world is wet and familiar. But as soon as the water leaves, cryptobiosis is triggered. The animal curls into a barrel, reduces its activity to almost zero, loses most of its water, and literally vitrifies from the inside. The recipe varies by species. Some use the sugar trehalose, others special TDP proteins that, upon drying, form a glass-like matrix and physically prop up molecules, preventing them from breaking. Additionally, the D-sup, damage suppressor, protein was found. In experiments, its version, transferred to human cells, reduced DNA damage from radiation, suggesting how tardigrades survive doses that are fatal to most animals. In this barrel, some species withstand vacuum, extreme pressures, cosmic ultraviolet radiation, and cold near absolute zero, provided the impact isn't too prolonged. There's also the story of outer space exposure. In experiments by European researchers, some tardigrades return to life after exposure outside a sealed capsule in orbit, which is in itself incredible for an animal with cells, membranes, and enzymes. However, the myth of invincibility is untrue. Boiling water, prolonged radiation, overheating, mechanical damage, and overly abrupt environmental changes kill them. Not all species are equally hardy, and their resilience has limits. But the technique itself, temporarily freezing life's chemistry, packaging vulnerable parts in glass, and waiting, recalls a future technology perfected by nature in a tiny, almost invisible telescopic creature between the veins of a leaf. 7th fact. The termitary of some African species is not just a pile of earth, but a breathing, combined city, where the living organism manages climate and agriculture. Beneath the meter-high tower of clay and saliva lies a multi-story labyrinth of passages, chambers, and highways, and in the center are moist beds with fungi of the genus Termitomyces. Termites chew dry grass and wood into compost, inoculate it with mycelium, and then eat the fungus pre-digested mass themselves. To maintain a stable weather for this agricultural workshop, the entire architecture functions like enormous lungs. During the day, solar heating of the walls raises warm air through channels, expelling carbon dioxide and moisture. At night, cooling reverses the flow direction, and fresh air is drawn in through numerous pores in the walls. The porous shell, shafts, and side gills form a natural draft system that, without fans or electricity, maintains a narrow range of temperature and humidity needed for the mushroom farm and larvae. This is managed not by architects, but by collective simplicity. Each worker carries tiny balls of raw material, orienting themselves by smells and flows. Where a draft is felt, a brick is added. Where there is stagnation, a hole is made. Inside, a strict hierarchy reigns. Soldiers with huge jaws hold the defense, while the queen, swollen to immobility, lays eggs at the rhythm of a factory. After the rains, the fungus forms above-ground caps, spore parachutes, which peek out from the grass around the termitary, like beacons of a completed cycle. The myth of eternal and absolutely constant temperature is not accurate. There are fluctuations, and the architecture works differently for different species. But the principle itself, passive ventilation with feedback, has already inspired people. Well-known buildings in hot cities are designed with shafts, porous facades, and thermal inertia based on the model of termite towers, saving energy where air conditioners once decided everything. Nature here shows an engineering marvel. Without blueprints, without a main brain, and with just a set of if-then rules, millions of small builders keep climate, agriculture, and defense afloat under a single clay skin. Eighth fact: the axolotl is a salamander stuck in youth, which has turned this growth error into a superpower of repair. It lives in the cold canals of Mexico City, retaining its larval features throughout its life. Its external, lacy gills sway, its tail is flattened, its skin is thin, and its snout carries an eternal mask of surprise. But the main thing is hidden in its cells. If it loses a limb or part of its tail, it doesn't repair the wound with a scar like most vertebrates, but rather rewinds the tissue to its blueprint. At the edge of the wound, a blastema forms, a layer of cells that shed their specialization and become something like precursors, capable of regenerating bone, muscle, nerve, and skin again. As it grows, innervation connects to the regeneration. Nerve fibers not only restore sensation, but seem to set the plan for the area, directing the assembly. In laboratories, cells have been marked with fluorescent labels, and it has been observed how adult muscle fibers return to their precursor state and then mature again, almost as if the tissue's time frame were reversible. The axolotl manages to repair spinal cord damage, parts of the heart, and eyes, avoiding chronic inflammation. Its immune cells work differently, as if suppressing the cascade that in us leads to a stiff scar. If necessary, it can be pushed into adulthood with thyroid hormones. It comes onto land and loses its gills. But in the wild, it maintains its aquatic lifestyle because it is safer and more stable there. In urban canals, the species is under threat. Its fragile ecosystem is being eroded, and foreign fish eat the larvae. And it is paradoxical. The symbol of regeneration is vulnerable. The myth of immortality is exaggerated. Infections, overheating, poisons, or old age still take their toll. But the technique itself, returning to damaged tissue the memory of how it was once built, makes this smiling underwater teenager one of the most important models in biomedicine, and a living hint that scarless repair is possible. Ninth fact: the platypus is an animal that seems assembled from incompatible features, but this hodgepodge works flawlessly. It is a mammal that hatches from an egg and is nursed with milk, but without nipples. The mammary glands open directly onto the skin, and the young lick milk from the mother's fur. Underwater, it hunts with its eyes, ears, and nostrils closed, orienting itself not by sight or hearing, but by the electrosensitivity and mechanosensitivity of its horny bill. Weak electrical fields from the muscle contractions of a crustacean or larva draw an accurate movement map on its facial panel, and sensitive pressure receptors detect microscopic water disturbances. Scientists have shown that it combines these two channels, calculating the prey's trajectory by the phase and time shifts of the signals, like a miniature underwater radar. Adult platypuses have no teeth. They collect small creatures from the bottom along with pebbles and grind their prey with bony plates, like a hand mill. Males have spurs on their hind legs with a venom gland. The venom does not kill humans, but causes prolonged, unbearable pain, likely serving as a weapon in mating fights. Inside, it is even more surprising. It lacks a fully fledged acid-producing stomach pouch. The esophagus passes almost directly into the intestine. The genome carries relic traits of early mammals, and the set of sex chromosomes is complex and resembles a chain of several pairs, with similarities to the avian system. Under UV light, its fur emits a greenish-blue glow, a rarity among animals. It lives in burrows on the banks of eastern Australia and Tasmania, digging long tunnels with an underwater entrance and a nesting chamber on a dry shelf. Looking at it, one wants to talk about the evolution's freak show, but it is more correct to talk about the branching of the ancient mammal tree, where one path retained eggs, venom, and electrosensitivity, while another gave the fur coat warm blood and milk. The platypus simply preserved both lines and combined them into a very functional and very strange organism. 10th fact. The African honey guide is the only wild partner of humans in hunting, which calls us to prey and receives a fair share. In savannas and miombo woodlands, it approaches people, emits special crackling signals, and zigzag flying leads them, climbing onto branches and calling back again until somewhere ahead a hollow with wild bees is discovered. People respond with their ancient call. Different peoples have their own, and field experiments show that the correct call significantly increases the chance that the bird will start guiding and lead to the honey nest. Then, the human part of the ritual kicks in. Smoke, an axe, sharp sticks, and at the end, the sticky golden trophy. The bird waits nearby and feeds on what we need least: wax, larvae, pupae, honeycomb fragments. It's a rare diet for birds. Digesting wax isn't easy, but honey guides have enzymatic and microbial solutions for this task. It's amazing that this cooperation is culturally encoded. Where tradition disappears, honey guides stop communicating with people. In places where it's carefully preserved, both partners read each other like a book. Moreover, the bird has a dark side to its evolution. Like the cuckoo, it lays eggs in the nests of other species, and the hatched chicks are equipped with a sharp hook on their beak and eliminate host competitors to get all the food, a harsh but typical strategy for nest parasites. A widespread folk myth says that honey guides lead honey badgers to honey. There is little scientific confirmation of this. Their main ally remains humans. What's striking in this story isn't the friendship itself, but the precise behavioral tuning of two species. Our language of calls and their language of responses have converged into a common resource-finding algorithm that works better than either species alone, turning the forest into a negotiation space between wing and hand.